Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever gone to someone and told them how something they said or did hurt, bothered, or upset you, and instead of them acknowledging it, they somehow twisted it to make it so that it wasn't anything that they were responsible for, and maybe even left you questioning yourself or thinking that it was your fault in the first place? That's not taking responsibility. That's avoidance. And emotionally immature people have some very sophisticated and even sneaky ways of avoiding responsibility. So in this talk, I'm going to walk you through 6 of the most common ones so you can start to spot them and really be aware of what's happening so that you don't start to gaslight yourself out of your own experiences, your own feelings, or what you really need from a healthy relationship. But first, if you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you're back again, always good to have you. My name is Julia Christina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, a speaker, and the author of my book, Drive Your Own Darn Boss. And I help heart-centered humans think better, feel better, and live better so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. So years ago, I had this partner who would never admit when they messed up. If they did something that was hurtful or said something that was disrespectful or took their stress out on me, and I had something to say about it, or I didn't like it, or I would ask them not to, there would always be some reason why it wasn't their fault. They'd always have some kind of story or excuse for it. At the time, I didn't fully recognize what was happening, but learning about this and doing the work that I do and being able to see it for what it is, now realized that this was textbook avoidance. And here's the thing. Emotionally immature people don't avoid responsibility by accident. These are learned behaviors to deflect blame in order to protect their ego, usually because there's some deeper shame going on underneath the surface. More on that in a little bit, but first I want to talk about 6 of the most common ways that emotionally immature people avoid responsibility so that you know what to look out for, and also so, let's be honest, we can do our own self-reflection and see any of these patterns that might be coming up with us so that when we know better, we can learn better, we can heal better, and we can do better. So our first way that emotionally immature people avoid responsibility is probably the most common one, and this one is that they deflect. Instead of just saying, "I'm sorry, you're right, I made a mistake," they come up with some kind of excuse, like, "It wasn't my fault, it was because of the weather, or because of traffic, or because of my boss, or because of whatever that is." They have some kind of way to deflect taking the responsibility. They look for an escape hatch instead of looking in the mirror. The second way that emotionally immature people avoid responsibility, they minimize. You tell them how something really hurt you or bothered you, and they tell you why it wasn't that big of a deal. Or even worse, they tell you that you're too sensitive and you shouldn't be getting so upset about such small things, where they don't actually get to be the one to decide the impact. You, on the receiving end, are the one who is feeling the impact, and you get to decide what that experience was for you, and then be able to bring it up and talk to them about it, hoping that they will take responsibility, not just for the intent, but also just acknowledge that there could have been an impact that maybe they weren't intending, but it still happened, and they can own that and acknowledge that and get curious about that with you. It's almost like someone who borrows your car, and then while they have it out, they get a big dent in it. And when they bring it back to you, you look at it and you're like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" And they're like, "Oh, it's no big deal. It's just a scratch." This dismisses the impact instead of actually facing it and owning it. The third way that emotionally immature people avoid responsibility is excuse making. You tell them how something upset you, and they tell you, well, it's not my fault. It's because I was tired, or I had a really big day, or I snapped at you because I've got a lot going on and I was just overwhelmed. Now, those might all be really reasonable reasons why somebody had behavior that wasn't very kind, very respectful, or just very nice. But that's not the way to acknowledge or take responsibility for yourself and how you are treating someone. Yes, there's probably a reason why they did that. They didn't handle their own emotions. They didn't handle their own stress. They didn't handle their own stuff very well. And it's true, it's probably because there was a lot of other things going on. But that's not very fair to say that, well, it's not really my fault that you were hurt because I have all of this stuff. They could say, I had all of this stuff going on. I was really stressed. I was really overwhelmed. And that's why I snapped, or I was short with you, or I dismissed you. But that's not an excuse. I'm letting you know what was going on with me, but at the end of the day, you don't deserve to be at the butt end of my unmanaged emotions. So both of those things can be true. Yes, they had a lot going on, and yes, they should have not have taken it out on you. There's a difference between giving a reason and then owning it and repairing and just simply making an excuse. The fourth way that emotionally immature people avoid taking responsibility: defensiveness. If you've ever told them something that they did that bothered you or hurt you, upset you, felt disrespectful, and they say something like, well, you do it too. So instead of taking in that feedback, they launch a counterattack. One time, and this was years ago when I used to work at a community health clinic, I gave a piece of what I thought to be pretty gentle feedback to a colleague. And within seconds, they turned on me and started telling me all about how I had done all these things that had bothered them, that were inconsiderate to them, that were disrespectful to them. And they started just like saying all of these things that I had no idea about because they had never mentioned it to me. They had never said what I had done that had bothered them or upset them. And I just remember standing there being like, whoa, like, why didn't you say anything in the first place? We could have worked it out or had this conversation instead of me sharing something that you did that I didn't really like or appreciate. And now all of a sudden we've turned into this big blow up. You've become super defensive and even offensive instead of us just working things out like adults when it happened. But also understanding that defensiveness is usually someone's attempt at self-protection. Usually when someone has a lot of shame, any bit of feedback feels like an attack to them, and so they have to defend themselves by choosing a counterattack, getting offensive themselves in order to protect themselves from their own stuff that's coming up. And the fifth way that emotionally immature people avoid responsibility is blame flipping. And I think this one can be the hardest for those of us who are genuinely coming to someone to share something that they did or said that hurt us, that offended us, that didn't feel good. And we're wanting to share it with them in order to work it out and resolve it and come to an understanding and repair it. And instead of being met with them being like, oh, I'm really sorry. Yeah, I can understand how that would have upset you. They say something like, well, I wouldn't have done that if you wouldn't have done this. Or why do you always have to get upset about things? Why can't you just go with the flow? Why do you have to always take things personally or take it to heart or make it about you? So basically, gaslighting. Making you think that it's your fault that you're upset because of something that they did or something that they said. Literally flipping the blame back onto you and gaslighting you for your own feelings. This one can be really hard also for those of us who are more highly sensitive or more empathic and really don't want to be hurting other people. And so then when they kind of tell us how it's our fault that we're the bad ones, it can be really hard for us to think like, well, maybe it was my fault. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Maybe I am the one that created all the upset because I brought it up in the first place. There's that gaslighting. The sixth way that emotionally immature people avoid responsibility, and this probably is the most insidious one that is kind of sneaky at the same time. And this one is when they play the victim. Well, I guess I just can't do anything right. Or I guess I'm just the bad guy again. At first, this one can sound even a little bit humble or self-deprecating or almost like they are taking the blame for what they had done or said. But that's not what it is. And you know that that's not what it is because of how it feels in your body. You start to feel guilty for bringing it up. And so they are exchanging your guilt for their accountability. Victimhood can masquerade as humility, but it's often just avoidance in disguise. That's why emotionally mature responsibility takes courage. It's not about being perfect and handling things perfectly all the time, but it is about being willing to take a step back and be honest and be vulnerable and look inward and learn and heal and grow and work towards better for ourselves, for our relationships, for our lives. And again, if you find yourself getting emotionally triggered or thrown off pretty easily, no matter which side you're on with this one, if you are the one at the receiving end of the complaint or you're the one who is at the receiving end of the deflection of that complaint, and that really triggers you, then make sure you get my 3-step emotional reset plan. That is going to help you get more calm and grounded in the moment so that you can think more clearly, handle things more emotionally maturely, and be able to just get that space so that you can respond instead of react, no matter whomever or whatever is going on around you. It is always good to have you here. Love to hear your feedback in the comments. And until next time, take good care of yourself. Take good care of those around you. Bye for now.